Hey, what's up, everybody? Haven't seen you guys in a minute. Sorry about the delay. Honestly, man, it's week 18 was last week. Didn't really have a lot of value there. Didn't decide to post a video. Sorry, didn't know that was going to happen. I was looking and looking and looking all week. Didn't really see a lot. I think I mentioned to Kevin, he had messaged me asking, like, hey, are you going to put a video out? And I told him, like, there's usually a lot of overs this last week of the season. So just a note for you guys, and I'm sorry because if anything, I should have put that out, or at least like on Twitter or something. The last week of the season, we tend to see a lot of overs, and the lines are usually really, really low, and the general public is just thinking like, you know what, they're not going to score, they're taking a lot of people out, guys are resting, whatever. That's the case sometimes, but for the most part, teams are kind of tuning up for the playoffs, and or certain teams are trying to get to their bonus levels. So, you know, if the team maybe not gonna do shit and they're definitely out of the playoffs, that doesn't mean that the players don't want to play. They still have a very real incentive that they need to hit, and so a lot of times we see these games go way over, and a lot of times the defense is even kind of like, it's almost like a Pro Bowl game. Like, they're not really trying to hit the hell out of everybody. They're just kind of going through the motions, trying to get out of there healthy. So, anyways, there were a lot of overs to hit. Really, personally, I just had a lot of round robins out there on overs, hit a few of them. Again, nothing really that I wanted to put out there with a whole lot of confidence. So it worked out, but again, just kind of keep that note in mind for yourself next year. Prior to that, though, week 17 was pretty terrible. I think we were like 1-3. It happens. We had been on a good little streak of like 2-0, 2-0, and then boom, 1-3. So we end the season at about 10.7 units up. I think I mentioned this before in a couple of videos, actually, that the unit size for the videos are $200. That's my unit size. Doesn't have to be yours. You can do whatever the hell you want. But $200 unit size. So that comes out to almost $2,200 that was made throughout the regular season. Obviously, you know, want to get that unit size up, and every year kind of add on to that. So eventually the goal is to get that to like 1,000, and, you know, maybe even continue growing from there. But it's going to depend on your unit size as to what your goal needs to be, because if you have a unit size of, you know, $10, you might need to win 100 units just to kind of make it worth your while. Whereas if you have a unit size of like 10 grand, you know, 10 units is perfect. 10 units is like a damn annual income for you, so you're good. So it really just depends on your unit size and just kind of scalability of what you're doing there. But anyways, enough of that. What I want to get into is the playoffs. Love the playoffs. The last 2-3 years, have been really successful for me as far as just handicapping and picking games and things like that. So I want to give that to you guys and kind of go through the whole process here. I have one pick, very particular pick that I feel very strongly about, and we'll go over that and kind of the details and things. But I'm going to break them all down because I know you guys are probably looking at every single game on the board. There's only 6 games, so why not at least look through them? I'll give you my take on them. Like I said, as of right now, Sorry, I had to stop that for a second because I had some damn animals getting crazy over here. Anyways, so there's one thing I'm going to add at the end of the video, the very end. So if you don't want to listen to it, by all means, say screw me and just don't watch it. But now that we're obviously getting towards the end of football season, again, you guys may have heard this before, but my like regular 9-to-5 stuff, it was being an investment analyst, stock picking and all that kind of crap. So while I'm doing that on my own now, I can actually give you guys some of these picks and some of the news and information, stocks and stuff like that. So again, I know most of you are not here for that, but if you are interested in something like that, just kind of another way to maybe keep your income going or something to be interested in when the football season is over, it'll be at the end of the video. It'll be like 2 minutes, and it'll just be a real quick stock pick. That being said, let me get into the actual pick, and then we'll go from there. So if that's what you want to hear, you can hear it first. And it's going to be the Patriots Bills game to go over 43. The line has actually moved on this. I think it's moved to 44 at this point. If you can, I would get it at 43.5. Maybe even pay the little bit of extra juice to get it down to 43.5. We've gone over it a million times. I want to say like at least every week that I put out a video. 44 is a key number. And so if you can get it to the 43.5, I would pay just that little bit of juice because it's like minus 120 to do it. It's not a huge ding for that on totals. I would do that and take the over 43.5 again, or over 43 if you can find it out there, but I don't think you're going to. Couple of things on that. So one, if you look at the previous games, the first matchup was 14-10, really low scoring game. If you don't remember, that's totally fine. But that game was the most weather impacted game of the season. That was, and I'm not just talking about for these two teams, I mean just in general. The wind that day was, I think, like over 40 miles per hour. So really both those teams came in full well knowing they were not going to be passing the ball at all. And it was just run. I think Mac Jones threw like 3 passes the entire game. And they squeaked out a 14-10 win. Obviously, the weather impacted that game. The next time they played in New England, and it went to 54. Really, the rationale behind this one is just kind of twofold. So one, these teams really struggle at stopping the strength of the opponent when they're playing each other, obviously. So the Bills have a really hard time stopping the run. They just are not built for it. Their linebackers are a little bit on the small side. Their front four is a little bit on the small side. They're really meant to play with speed. They're meant to get after the pass rusher, kind of interrupt your flow. When Tre'Davious White was still back there, the Bills had a great secondary, and they're still good, but obviously it's going to hurt you when you don't have Tre'Davious White back there. These guys were built to stop the pass, not the run. So when they come up with an opponent like the Patriots, who are these big, bruising, we're going to clear out a path kind of guys, they struggle to stop that. And the Patriots are going to move the ball on the ground. They're going to have big chunk plays on the ground. Now, that being said, when the Bills have the ball, the Patriots just cannot seem to stop this Bills passing attack. The first time they played, they were obviously able to stop it because of the wind, because of the weather. The second time, they just couldn't do anything about it. Josh Allen was doing whatever the hell he wanted to do, and they had these guys circled. They wanted to beat the Patriots, and they wanted them bad. And I think that we're going to see that motivation again here. Obviously, it's the playoffs, but I think you're going to see this kind of heightened because it is a divisional matchup. Because the Bills know these guys so well, and they know what they want to do, where they want to attack, and how to kind of best play this team, I think you're going to see the Bills offense really shine through in this one. And the last part, or the second note of this, is the weather. It is going to be cold. It's going to be, I think, like 5 degrees or some shit like that. I don't want to play in it, but the cold itself does not really impact the scoring on the NFL teams. Now, a lot of people immediately see cold or the temperature, and they're like, that's going to be a shitty game. Not the case. Anytime you have a cold weather game, and I think they were doing some research on this back to like 2010, and I say they, just people podcasting in different places that I've read and things, going back to 2009, when you have a game that is below 30 degrees, and there's not strong wind, it's 23-18 to the over, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's about 58%. It's a huge swing to the over, and that's because the line usually adjusts. You usually have the public come in and kind of keeping that line low, where the cold doesn't affect these guys the way that the wind would. The wind is the worst thing for an NFL team, especially one who wants to pass. So again, the weather is going to do nothing but help the Patriots, right? They're not really trying to throw the ball anyways. But for the Bills, their offense should not be as affected by just simply having a cold weather game. It should be just fine as far as moving the ball is concerned. On that note, I really like this over, and I think that you're going to get a great number at it, and I think that you're probably going to really have some value in this one, because I can see this game, and I'm handicapping this game at going at about 50, 51 points, somewhere around there. The other part of this game that I like, but I have not put any money on it yet, is the Bills to win, and I'm really trying to wait to get down to the Bills -3 if it ever comes. The reason I like that one is, again, kind of twofold. So one, as far as the Patriots are concerned, they are still rolling out a rookie quarterback. I know it's kind of easy to forget that because he's played pretty well. The team is being pretty good. Obviously, they're in the playoffs. He's a rookie quarterback. Rookie quarterbacks have terrible struggles in the postseason. I'd have to really go back and look again, but I want to say they have like a 10% win record, if that, in the playoffs as far as rookies are concerned, in general, rookie quarterbacks. And I don't think it's going to be any different for Mac Jones. It just does not set up well for them, especially if the Bills can get their offense going. I don't think Mac Jones has enough experience, enough firepower, enough anything to keep the Patriots kind of, keep pace with the Bills. And it's not his fault, but his experience level is also not going to help them. So I really do believe that the Bills win this game for that reason. But aside from that, let me just show you a little bit of background here as far as divisional matchups and things like that. I went back the last 3 years just to kind of do some spreadsheets and get some little nuggets and things like that. So we look at these divisional games, and this is just from last year. So the Rams Seahawks was a divisional game. The Browns Steelers was a divisional game. Both of these teams were 1-1 in the regular season. So the Browns lost the first game to the Steelers. They won the second game against the Steelers, but it was the very last game of the season, and the Steelers had sat out Ben Roethlisberger. I think it was like Mason Rudolph or something that was playing that day, and they barely squeaked out a win in this one. The Rams Seahawks, same thing. Earlier in the season, the Seahawks had beat the Rams, and the Rams lost. The Rams won the first game, then the Rams lost the second game. However, the second game was 2 weeks before the playoffs, so they had literally had just a 2-week break. And if you remember from earlier in the season, or really a lot of weeks throughout the season, I've been saying anytime you have these games that are so close to each other, usually the loser of the first one makes the earlier adaptions and makes the changes to come back and better suit their game plan. So they usually win that second game, and actually have the stat on that here back. When it's 2 weeks apart, the winner of the first game only wins 26% of the time, meaning that the loser of that first game wins 74% of the time. So that's exactly what happened here. The Rams had just played the Seahawks 2 weeks prior. They lost. They came back 2 weeks later. They won. That's just the way that the adjustments are made in the playoffs. It is a little bit different once we get out of this first round. But so far, that's what we've seen. Now, if we take that little bit of knowledge and we apply it to this year with that Bills game, the Patriots Bills, again, the Bills just won this game recently. They won, but they happened to win. They happened to win 3 weeks ago, not 2 weeks ago. And this is one of these instances where they are 1-1 technically, right? They both won one game throughout the regular season. But going back to the weather aspect of it, the Bills should have really won both these games. Had it not been for that crazy wind, the Bills win both these games. There's no doubt in my mind. Even at the very end of that wind game, the Bills they said, screw it, we're going to pass the ball because we're down. Let's just see what happens. And they were actually able to move the ball through the air, even with the wind. They should have won that game had they come out with at least some sort of passing game. Now, aside from the fact that I think the Bills are just the better team, that they should have won twice, that we've seen this matchup twice already. Also, when it comes to the win record for 3 weeks, this yellow line here is 3 weeks, the team who won the last game usually wins 68% of the time. So that's a pretty great stat to say, hey, look, they're probably going to have the right adjustments. They're probably going to know what to do here to get this win. Now, the Patriots have kind of took their foot off the gas, so maybe they were already focusing on this matchup, but I really do believe the Bills have the better team, and if they can play to their strengths and if they play a clean game, the Bills should win this game. So again, I'm trying to wait till it gets down to 3. If it might not get there, if it doesn't, I might be totally off the game. I might be on a money line depending on what that number gets to as well. But for right now, I'm just waiting on the side, and I'm only taking the over 43. So that's the actual pick. As far as breaking down some of these games, I'm going to go through the history first, just the last 3 years or so. I'll break down the current games that are going to be coming up, and then we'll go from there. So one of the first aspects you think of when it comes to games, especially postseason games, is home field, right? Like who has home field, who gets to play at home, blah blah blah. Home field actually has a really bad record the last 3 years. So last year they were 2-4, and just a real quick little snapshot of who won, who lost. So the only two home teams that won last year were the Bills and the Saints. Now, there were some caveats to that. So this Washington team, you may remember, they were missing Alex Smith, who was already like their third-string quarterback, but he had got hurt. He was out. That's Tyler Heineke had to play that game. The Seahawks, again, this was the quick turnaround game. So, again, kind of a point for the Rams there. In this Titans-Ravens game, this isn't really a caveat. This is just the way the matchup happened to work out. The Ravens are a great run-stopping team. They even were this year. The Titans obviously relied on Derrick Henry. The Ravens were able to keep Derrick Henry to only 2.2 yards per carry. And because of that, they shut down that entire offense, and they were able to squeak out a win against the Titans at the 20-13. And the Steelers-Browns game, this one is really interesting because I think I had even forgot about this. I had to go back and watch some of it. If you think back to last year, this for round one game, again, they had just played the week prior, and the Browns had squeaked out a win against Mason Rudolph. So a lot of people came into that game thinking the Steelers were going to win because Ben was going to be playing. They'd probably make the adjustments they needed. What happened in that first quarter? The very first play of the game, the center snaps the ball over Ben's head. The ball goes into the end zone. Browns recover for a touchdown. Steelers get the ball back. Ben throws an interception like the 40-yard line of his own side of the field. That ends up in a Jarvis Landry touchdown just a few plays later. The Browns get the ball back again later on. They move down the field, just their offense. Nick Chubb doing his thing. They get another touchdown. Steelers get the ball back with like 3 minutes left in the first quarter. Ben throws another pick. This one's like at the 35-yard line. We finished the first quarter with the Browns up 28-0. That game was over. So, I mean, again, shit happens, right? Like, it's the NFL, it's chaos. But stuff like that is just not repeatable. It's not stuff that you can count on. It's not something you can really put into like an algorithm and say, hey, yeah, let's predict when this is going to happen. So the home field advantage didn't really work out last year. But again, there were a lot of caveats, and it kind of just gives us a little bit of a clue as to maybe some landmines to look out for and what we can maybe do to avoid some traps that they're going to set for us like that. Aside from that, the average was actually a really high average total. That was almost 51 points, 50.5 for this first game. Now, if you look closely, the only games that actually went over 51 were the Buccaneers-Washington game and the Browns-Steelers game. Now, the Browns-Steelers, like I said, they had a really fluky start. So that's 28 points, where 21 of them come off of turnovers or just weird plays. That's probably not going to happen. If you take that game out, this average is a lot lower. It actually falls to about 44 as your average total. And that's important because if you look back further than that, 2019, the average was only about 37. 2018, the average was, again, about 36. We'll round it and say 37. But the average is pretty low for this first week. So while I like the over in that Bills game, a lot of the other games are really going to be leans as far as to the under for me. If nothing else, just based on trends that teams come out. One, really nervous to kind of start off the postseason. But secondly, they're really, really playing tight. They're playing conservative. They're trying to maybe not make mistakes and just kind of wait for the other guy to make the mistake kind of game. It doesn't really work very frequently. But that's just how they come out. So keep that in mind as well as you're looking at these. And we'll go over the individual games here in a second. But just, again, want to give you guys these nuggets because it's important to kind of get at least of a mindset that the coaches are going to have coming into this game, and just kind of what we've seen in the past and how these teams perform and things like that. So going back to 2019 with the Bills Texans, as far as home field goes, the Texans were the only home team to win. So the home field advantage was 1-3 in 2019. The caveats for this year, again though, some more landmines that we need to be aware of. The Patriots that year, that was the basically flukiest year for them because they had a really shitty offense. They had like nobody as far as receivers are concerned. It was Brady's last year there, and they really, were winning off of their quote-unquote defense, but they also had the easiest schedule in the NFL that year. So they were probably just more of a fraudulent team than anything, and it's hard to say that about Brady and Belichick together, but that year was just not really a good year for them, as seen by their first-round exit here. I don't know if you remember, but going back in time here, I think through like 8 weeks, they were like 8-0, and everybody was talking about how great their defense was, and the defense is so amazing, and blah, blah, blah. And one of those wins even came against the Cowboys, where the Cowboys had a really good offense, but they played like in a monsoon in New England, and they just couldn't move the ball because it was just like windy and rainy. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say like they literally played in a monsoon. It was terrible conditions for a game, and the Patriots won that game like 10-7 or 7-3 or some shit like that. But anyways, really fraudulent team there, so I'm not surprised that the Titans beat them there. The Vikings-Saints game, that's the game where Stephon Diggs won on the walk-off Hail Mary touchdown or whatever it was. So again, really just kind of struggling here to not say fluke, but just these things that are really hard to predict, and these things that are saying, hey, it takes a lot for these teams to come in here and win against these home field teams, but it happens pretty frequently, especially on these like just kind of one plays. If they're two teams that are somewhat similar, they're competitive against each other, it can come down to just one big play, like we saw in that Vikings game. The Seahawks game, this is another one that was kind of a fraudulent team. The Eagles, first of all, played in a really weak division. That division sucked that year. But aside from that, they also lost Carson Wentz in this game. I think Carson Wentz was like, 4 passes in or something. It was like the first quarter, and he got hurt. And Josh McCown had to come in and play the rest of that game, and he just couldn't do a damn thing with that offense. So the Seahawks win in that one. So, again, another game where it was an injury, kind of a fluky deal. So what do we have so far? We have injury, weird turnovers, and just teams that are fraudulent teams that we need to know that going in. And how can we tell who's a fraudulent team? Just like I said with the Patriots, we want to look at who they played this year. How was their strength of schedule this year? And if we can find a team that had like a really, really easy strength of schedule that's going to be playing a team that's maybe a little bit more tested, that should give us some cue, a little red flag to maybe take that team that's a little bit more battle tested, especially if they're getting points, especially if they're, because a lot of times they're away, so they're going to get some points. So we'll keep that in mind here for just another second or two down the line. But again, this will be the last history lesson. So going back to 2018, the home field again was 1-3. So that comes out to a total of 4 wins and 10 losses. So it's 4-10 in the last 3 years as far as home field advantage in the wild card round. Texans just had a bad showing. There's really no caveat for that one. The Colts just went in there and kicked their ass with Andrew Luck. Cowboys Seahawks, again, that was just a pretty straightforward game. Cowboys just eked out a win in that one. Ravens Chargers, now this one is one that there is somewhat of a caveat. The Ravens won their division at 10-6, so they, obviously they got to host the home game. The Chargers were 12-4. The Chargers actually had a better year, but they didn't win the division, so they had to play in this game as a wild card, and they beat the Ravens. Now, that was, again, back with Phillip Rivers with a really good offense, and they were able to move the ball on that Ravens defense because they weren't trying to just run into the teeth of that Ravens defense every single time, and they ended up getting the win. So the Ravens were not a quote-unquote, fraudulent team that year because they had a good record, they had a good team, just a really bad matchup, and really they were the worst team, or they were the lesser of the two teams playing that day because of their schedule, because of what happened. They just kind of got lucked out in the fact that they got to host a game because they won a weaker division. Lastly, though, the Bears Eagles game, that's actually the game where the Bears lost on that last second field goal, like that dink field goal or dink and dunk, or I forget what they called it, but that was the play that caused the Bears and Matt Nagy to go searching all offseason for a field goal kicker, thinking that was the only piece missing from their offense. And obviously didn't work out. That's why he just got fired recently. But that's the game. That was the one where the Bears should have and could have won, and it just came down to a missed field goal. So again, these weird, just kind of like one-off plays where it just doesn't go the right way. And that's football for the most part, especially in the NFL. But those are the landmines we need to be looking for. So again, fraudulent teams that are going to have an issue with turnovers, and teams that are just too close to call, don't touch it. Don't try to outsmart yourself. Kind of a rule of thumb I myself forget sometimes, but we should be looking at is if it's taking you more than like 5 or 10 minutes to make a call on a game, just by looking at it before you get into the analytics of everything, just try and skip it. There's a lot of times if you don't immediately see an edge to a game, it's too tight to call. Don't mess with it. There's other games on the board. Unless it's the Super Bowl, just move on to the next game. You don't need to be wasting your money. You don't need to be trying to show how smart you are, because at the end of the day, nobody gives a shit. It's just gonna, if you win or lose, that's all we care about. We don't care how smart you are and how great this, play looked or whatever. So when it comes to this first week, we're looking for the easy stuff. We're not trying to be the smartest people in the world. We're just trying to win some damn money. So that's the history. As far as the games for this week, the Raiders, Bengals. So don't have any play on this one yet. If I had to, I would have taken the Raiders at the +6 or +6.5. That line's already moved. But I can tell you why it's moving. The Bengals offensive line, and you've probably already heard this, but the Bengals offensive line is really, really weak. And they actually made a big deal about it because when they drafted Jamar Chase, everybody wanted them to get Penei Sewell and kind of shore up that offensive line. And that's great. And Jamar Chase actually worked out for them. But the reason is the issue here is because that Raiders defensive line is the strength of the Raiders. The Raiders defensive line knows how to get after the quarterback. They know how to cause havoc back there. And that's really their bread and butter. That's what they're going to rely on more than Derek Carr, more than Waller. They are relying on that defensive line to give them some short fields, some good field position, maybe get some turnovers, to kind of bully your quarterback and your offensive line around. And that's going to be an issue for the Bengals. The Bengals love to pass the ball, but if Joe Burrow's constantly on his back, or if he's getting pushed out of the pocket or having to make awkward throws, it's an issue. And so there is a real chance that the Raiders win that game because of a fluke turnover, because of a fluke play, like we just talked about the last couple seasons. These teams that are maybe relatively close, they have a very equal record. Strength of schedule is not too far off. This is a game I'm trying to stay away from. If I had to pick something as far as winning, just a straight up win, I'd say the Bengals. But if I'm taking the points, I'm going with the Raiders, especially if you can get it at the 6. So that's there. Now, as far as the total is concerned, I'd be looking at the under on this one. And again, it's for the same exact reason. If the Raiders are going to be getting after Joe Burrow, and I don't see any way around that unless the Bengals are going to play super conservative and, keep their tight ends in and use Joe Mixon to chip and things like that. I don't see a way around that defensive line, other than maybe some like slant routes and things. But either way, they're going to have to really adjust that offense to kind of cater to what's coming at them. I do not see a lot of points being scored in this game. I would be looking to take the under on this one. I believe it's at 49 right now. Now, the Patriots Bills, we already talked about that game in depth. As far as the Eagles Buccaneers are concerned, let's actually take a look at the strength of schedule on this one. So the Bengals actually have the second easiest strength of schedule. That's another reason I'd be kind of concerned. The Raiders only had the 9th easiest, so not super hard, not average, and it wasn't a really difficult schedule, but it is definitely a harder schedule than what the Bengals have faced up to this point. This is based off of defensive efficiency of their opponents. So the Raiders have had the harder path to get where they're at here. They've overcome more than the Bengals have, in my opinion, just with all the weird shit they had to deal with this year. So just kind of another nod to the Raiders for that game. Aside from that, though, if we go to the next game we're about to talk about, which was the Eagles-Buccaneers game, we see a huge difference here. The Eagles are the third easiest schedule of the year, and they put together a 9-7 season. The Buccaneers were the 31st or second hardest schedule of the year. So the Buccaneers, more tested, better schedule, better quarterback, better everything than the Eagles. The only issue I have with this game is that the Eagles do have a rushing quarterback in Jalen Hurts, and that has proven to give the Buccaneers some issues, but I don't see him being enough to win this game, and I really am not even thinking he'll have enough to keep this close. I could see the Buccaneers just blowing them out early and just kind of taking that lead moving forward. One thing that I do like in this game is actually the Buccaneers team total at 27.5, going that to the over. Like I said, a lot of times these games are lower scoring games, so the full-on total, I believe, is like at 47 right now. And that may be just a little high, only because I don't know if the Eagles can do their part to keep it close enough in this one. I do think at the end of the game, maybe the Buccaneers take out their starters and the Eagles do whatever the hell they want to just kill the clock out, and maybe they help us get over that 47. But I definitely believe that the Buccaneers are going to put up more than 28 points, and they're probably going to put up 21 in the first half. The 27.5 over for the team total on the Buccaneers is a play that I really like. Haven't placed the money on it just yet. I want to see if that line is going to move any more. If I can get it down to the 27, I like it even more, obviously. But again, that's the one side. I don't know if I would take the full game total. Other than that, Buccaneers really would be my pick on this one, either with the points or straight up, or however you want to play it. You can tease that one. A lot of places it is at 8.5 right now, so teasing it down to the 2.5 gets you through the key numbers. So if you wanted to do that, that'd be great as well, especially if you're looking to put another game on there somewhere, if you have something else in mind. The second leg of that, if I'm going to tease it, I'm just going to kind of skip the Cowboys game for right now, would be the Steelers-Chiefs game. The Chiefs, for most books, are at -12 right now, so that would get you down to -6, so you'd get a key number there as well. But the Chiefs-Steelers, just the way that game kind of breaks down, the Steelers, again, if you haven't already heard, basically just had their lucky underwear on, and by the skin of their teeth made it into the playoffs. I don't really foresee a way that they can keep it close with the Chiefs, but I do see a way that they cover the big spread at the end. Like I said, and like we just saw with these prior games, at least the last 3 years of evidence, a lot of times these games are closer games. We don't see a lot of huge blowouts. And while the Chiefs are a much better team than the Steelers, the Chiefs are also going to be playing not only to win, but to keep everybody healthy for the next week. So if the Chiefs get a big lead and it's already like the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, you could see guys coming out. You could see the defensive guys coming out, just trying to kind of keep it healthy. The Steelers have had 2 weeks of like final games. The 2 weeks ago at home was supposed to be like the goodbye to Ben, and then last week was supposed to be like their final game, and they ended up going to overtime, and just the emotions and all that kind of stuff, and of getting into the playoffs. They've had 2 weeks of like, okay, season's over, and it's not really over. I do not see these guys getting up for this game. But aside from just like feelings and emotions, the Chiefs are just a better team. The one weakness that the Chiefs have here is that they do struggle to stop the run, and the Steelers will use that against them. The Steelers are going to try to run this ball as much as they can, but the Steelers' passing defense has not been great. The Chiefs should be able to pass on these guys. Steelers per DVOA are like 8th at stopping the pass, but they've also had a very easy schedule. They're the 4th easiest schedule. The Chiefs are only 6th easiest, so they really haven't been tested either, at least not this year. But the Steelers have not had to go up against teams that can pass the way the Chiefs can. Again, really just as long as the Chiefs can get a lead, as long as the Chiefs' passing game is working, which I don't see how the Steelers slow it down. There's just not enough guys on the defensive side of the ball as far as like firepower is concerned to slow down that Chiefs passing attack. The Chiefs should get a hold of this game early, just blow the top off this place, and get their starters out of there as soon as they possibly can. So I would be taking the Chiefs. Again, if you can, I would tease them with the Buccaneers just so you get those key numbers. Also, because you want to play into kind of your memory here, that we're not expecting a lot of blowouts. So you want to get these down below one possession games. And just, again, a quick recap. We have one game here that was decided by more than 7 points, or 10 points, that is. We didn't have any in 2019. And then in 2020, we had, that's 10 points, 8 points, 7 points. You had 2 games that were decided by more than 10 points. One of them was by 11, and this is kind of fluky because the Steelers just put up a bunch of garbage time points, and this other Bears-Saints game. So we do not see a lot of blowouts in this first round of the playoffs. So, again, if you can, you want to tease that down. Now, the Cowboys 49ers game, this is one I'm really interested in watching, but I don't have a lot of confidence in either side. The range of outcomes is just too far in this one. The Cowboys can pass, or should be able to pass very well on that 49ers secondary. 49ers, I like 26 per DVOA against the pass, so the Cowboys should have an advantage there. On the flip side of the ball, though, the 49ers love running the ball. I think they're number 2 at their rushing attack per DVOA, where the Cowboys are 26th rated defense against the rushing attack. So both these teams have a strength against their opponent's weakness. I could see either team winning this one, and it's really going to come down to who gets the better start. If Jimmy Garoppolo has more than one turnover, the Cowboys will win this game. There's just no way that I don't want to say no way because they're the Cowboys. They can mess up anything. But if Jimmy G is giving up the ball and the Cowboys can get some short fields and just get some scores and make the 49ers have to play their game, make the 49ers have to pass the ball, it's going to be a tough day for the 49ers. On the flip side, if the 49ers can get out to a good start and they can put up a lead and they can maybe just get out in front, even if it's just by a score or two, and they can afford to run the ball, slow it down, play their run game, let Deebo Samuel, do his thing on the ground, let Elijah Mitchell get loose a little bit, then it's going to be a hard game for the Cowboys to come back. Even if they can score quickly, it won't really matter if the 49ers can just control the pace of the game. So I'm staying away from that one. If you really absolutely are just going to put something on that, to be totally honest with you, I'd go with the 49ers money line. Just because it's the most valuable play that there is in that game. I think the over-under was probably going to be under because it's at 51 right now, and I don't see this one being a high-scoring game regardless of who wins. I know that's very contrarian. I know a lot of people are taking the over. It went from 49 to 51. Everybody's thinking it's going to be a huge high-scoring game because of what I just said. You have this strong strengths against weaknesses as far as offense and defenses are concerned. With that being said, though, neither of these teams is really aggressive, and I don't see either of them being super aggressive regardless of the score. Even if the Cowboys are ahead, I don't think Mike McCarthy is going to be calling bombs. They're still going to have these little dink and dunk passes. They're going to try to get Zeke going. They're going to give Pollard the ball a few times. They're going to kind of play it slow, maybe keep something in the bag. Unless Kellen Moore gets crazy because he's got interviews coming up, I don't see them trying to put up 50. The 49ers, on the other hand, same way. If they get the lead, they're going to slow it down. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play very conservatively. I don't see them trying to go out there and put up 50 points either and winning a shootout. This is probably going to be a lower scoring game than everybody is expecting. So those are the two ways I'd play that game. Lastly, Cardinals Rams, and this is a really interesting one. Again, another one I'm really looking to see. I am leaning the Rams right now. I've not put any money on this one either. But if I had to, I would be looking to put it right here on the Rams, especially if I can get them at a -3. So the Rams actually won the last game. going back again to our history lesson, this is a divisional matchup. They are 1-1 on the regular season. The Cardinals won the first game. The Rams won the second game. Now the Rams sort of got lucky in the fact that the Cardinals were really banged up for their second game. They were missing Chase Edmonds still, and they were missing Hopkins. So the Rams are able to take advantage and get the win in that one. In this one, still not going to have DeAndre Hopkins back, but you are going to have Chase Edmonds back if you're the Cardinals. Should be able to run a little bit more effectively. Now, the Cardinals have actually lost 4 out of their last 5 games. And they lost to the Lions. They lost to the Rams, obviously. I think the only team that they beat was the Cowboys. That was a really weird, fluky game for the Cowboys. So, not a really good trend for the Cardinals right now. But that being said, one thing that really just stuck out to me as I was kind of breaking down this game is the amount of times that these teams run the ball. So the Rams actually run 39% of the time. That's actually pretty low. That's lower than average. The Cardinals run 44% of the time, which is about league average. But where it really stands out is on first down. The Rams run 48% of the time on first down. The Cardinals run 56% of the time on first down. If you look at their defensive sides of the ball, they both give up about 50% success to the rush, just kind of overall. But on first down, both defenses only have about a 47% success rate, meaning that they're pretty good at stopping that run on first down. They're going to play to stop the run first on first down. So one thing that stuck out to me about that is whichever team makes the adjustment of running less on first downs should put themselves in a really good position to win this game. Whether that's the Rams or the Cardinals, if they are passing and being more efficient and getting more yards and kind of playing opposite of what their opponent is expecting, they should be able to get a lead early and then just kind of establish that and take that throughout the whole game. Again, I think the Rams will win. I think that without DeAndre Hopkins, the Rams can play that defense to stop the run, and the Cardinals are going to try and run the ball because now they have Edmonds back, now they have James Conner back. They're going to try and use these guys to kind of break down that Rams defense, and the Rams have not really been great at stopping the run. Again, they're a lot like the Bills in that they're built for speed. They're built to stop the pass, not so much the run, just they have a smaller roster, thinner guys, faster guys. And so the Cardinals could try to maybe bully them around, maybe use Zach Ertz as far as some short passing game stuff. But I don't think it's going to be as successful as they like, especially with McVay kind of game planning for this, being familiar with the Cardinals, being very familiar with the rosters and what he has seen from this team year in and year out with Cliff and Kingsbury. I do think that you're going to see the Rams just get this win. If you're not already familiar with that division, usually the 49ers are able to beat the Rams one way or another. They just have the Rams number, and the Rams beat the Cardinals, and then the Cardinals beat the 49ers. It's a weird triangle they have going on, but that's just the way it usually works out, and I don't see it any different this time around. I do believe the Rams are going to get this win. And again, if I can get it down to the -3, I would be happy to take the Rams, but I'm not going to lay the 4. So that's it as far as the picks and the info and the breakdowns and all that kind of stuff. So I know it's a little bit long-winded, guys. I know we had some history lessons and stuff like that in there. Hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully you found something in it that maybe stuck out to you. Again, my pick for right now is that Bills Patriots over. Follow me on Twitter at AG_sports21 because I probably won't have time to make another video, but I'll have time to put my picks out there as I actually lay my money on these games. I am going to be increasing the unit size for the playoffs as I usually do. That's mainly because I have more time to break down these games, more information, and I know the motivations of these teams without a doubt. They're obviously trying to win these games. So I'm going to be increasing my unit size. Doesn't mean you have to, but it may be something to look at, especially if you find that you're being successful in the playoffs and you've already kind of stockpiled some money from the rest of the year. And with that being said, guys, if you're just here for the football stuff, that's it. I'll see you next time, and I'll see you on Twitter. I'm putting up the pics on there, and if I have a chance to make another video, I will. If not, good luck this weekend. if you are interested in stocks, I do have a pick to give you. Like I said, just a quick background. I have been working with stocks and just financial stuff for the last 10 years at this point of my life. Found really some good success with stock picking, and I was able to get really make some people some money the last couple of years with the stock picking, and then use a lot of those same tactics when it comes over to football. But as far as picks, it's important that you know I do a lot of cyclical trading. It is off of a calendar that was created and all that kind of stuff. A lot like the football picks, a lot of numbers, a lot of info, a lot of data points that we're taken off of. If you're not familiar with stocks, that's totally fine. I'll be putting up a video probably after the playoffs, just kind of telling you how to get into it, how to open that avenue of trading and where to go and what to do, what to expect, taxes, all that kind of stuff. But for right now, hopefully you already have something set up. If you don't, if you have a bank account where they have like a brokerage option, something like a Chase Bank or Charles Schwab, E-Trade, those are all free. I would just go in there, open one up, and just kind of play around with it, even if it's just a couple bucks. This first one is going to probably be a little bit expensive, but if you have it, I would try it just to get used to it, if nothing else. This is going to be Starbucks. So Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, or at least it used to be Dunkin' Donuts, have really, really good Februaries. For the last 5 years or so, they've done really, really well from the beginning of February or end of January all the way through the end of February, and that would be our sell point, would be the very last week of February. It would be actually the last Wednesday of February, which is going to put us at February 23rd. And the reason for this is really, again, kind of threefold here. So one, the earnings for these companies come out at the beginning of February, and usually what we see is that they've done pretty well the year before, through Christmas time and gift cards and all that kind of stuff, and it's just getting colder, people want coffee. You see the sales coming in, you see them hitting their earnings expectations and things like that, and it just kind of gives us that quick little bump to start the month out. As we keep going through the end of that month, though, people kind of stay with coffee on the mind. You have colder weather up north. Coffee bean season actually only runs through March. So usually what will happen is in February, Starbucks and other big coffee companies will buy big, huge bulk loads of coffee beans to keep them going throughout the summer, because there's not a lot of coffee beans being grown after that. So they usually get better prices. They usually have a better margin. You usually have a lot of things working in favor for them that increases price throughout the month of February. So for that reason, I would be looking to buy Starbucks right now. It's also buying the dip. As of right now, Starbucks has been on just a downward trend for the last 4 or 5 days. The reason, and there's a couple of reasons for this as well, but one was Omicron. People don't want to be in public anymore. They don't want to be out there getting drinks with other people touching it and kind of having to be in these crowded areas. So you're seeing this kind of decrease the revenue from Starbucks slowly, but it really wasn't making a huge difference until the employees said something, and the employees said, we need to unionize, we can't be here in these conditions. You had a lot of people quitting, things like that. And it sounds really bad. And even as I'm telling you this, I'm like, man, that's that's not a good sign, right? Well, they did finally start voting to unionize. They have finally started addressing these issues. And if you have not heard the phrase before, buy on the bad news. We have kind of established this support line at about about $104 for Starbucks. Meaning that with all this bad news, all the bad publicity, everything that's coming out negatively against Starbucks, the market in general is telling us, look, it's valued at about $104 a share. We're not really willing to take much less than that. The 104 is about where we're settled at. So unless we get something crazy that comes out of Starbucks, some huge allegation or something that's just going to totally throw this out of whack, we've pretty much hit the floor on Starbucks. So if you can buy it now, you'll buy it in time to get the bump that should be coming here within the next 2-3 weeks when they release their earnings, and then also be able to kind of ride it out through February as the bad news kind of subsides. Hopefully the Omicron wave kind of dies down, we get more employees back, you get more business, you get the kind of the rise back up with Starbucks. And if you can look to buy an option with Starbucks, and that's again a little bit more aggressive. But if you have the means and if you're familiar with options, if you don't know what options are, don't do it. I don't want to lead you down that path. But if you're at least somewhat familiar and savvy with it, you may want to look to just dabble in it with something that goes through like March. Just so you can get that right up with Starbucks. This is not legal advice, so I'm not gonna be running your accounts or anything like that. I just want to bring this to your attention to show you that this is something that the stock market is expecting. Dunkin' Donuts, as I mentioned earlier, used to be part of this group as well. However, they were bought out by Arby's, and Arby's is not like a public company, so you can't take part in that rise anymore. But you can still do it with Starbucks. So there's your pick as far as stocks are concerned. I will be looking into more stock information and giving more of this stuff as we get out of football season. So if you're interested in it, let me know. If you have no interest in it, also let me know. Again, just another way to make some money and kind of diversify and just, if nothing else, give you something to follow and be interested in throughout the off season. So thanks again, guys. You have a great weekend. Good luck. Hopefully everybody makes some money and have fun watching the games.